have not heard of their plans. We have not seen anything as it relates to the plans. We have we were able to get court to agree um, that we have been able to get court to agree to have a conversation with the community and which questions will be asked of court. But beyond that,
Oh, let me mute this real quick. That's being streamed.
Yeah, hold on. I need to. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that are on watching these the live stream so far, this is set up right now so everybody can get your settings going. We'll be going live in about 24 minutes, right at 7 o'clock. So feel free if you need to step away and come back. But this is here so you can get all of your, for those of you that are on, all your details set up for how you're going to stream the live stream so far. This is set up right now so everybody can get your settings going. We'll be going live in about 24 minutes, right at 7 o'clock. So feel free if you need to step away and come back. Okay, sorry about that. And this is part of the reason I'm doing this early to make sure I get all the kinks worked out because I had audio looping in there twice. So for those of you that are on here right now, I just have the stream up so you can get your settings all put together, figure out how you're going to get it set up on your home computer or on your TV. We're live on YouTube and we're live on Twitter, and we're live on Facebook on both Tour Guide Takes and under mine, LiamGideon. So we'll be checking back a little bit later on. We'll be going live in about 23 minutes. Computer or I guess it would help if I unmute. All right, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that are watching, we are live. We will be starting our tour soon. We're going to give everybody a few minutes to get set up for those that are joining at the last minute. If you are watching right now, please do me a favor, pop a comment into the chat so I can see, make sure everything works. No sound, thank you. So do I have sound now? And you always got to have something that I mess up, right? Can't hear you. Can you check it now? Better. Okay, cool. Hello, Nicole. Hello, Cindy. And Art, I see you're on here as well. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our tour. We're going to start here in a few minutes. I see people rolling in right now, so I'm going to give it a minute before we get too in-depth into things to give everybody a chance to get logged in. I know some people are going through the Eventbrite and they want to get through the login and everything. Paul, all good. Jeff, all good. Belinda's here. You can hear me, Tony. Gonzo, I'm glad you made it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so while we're waiting to get started, anybody have your drink? Share with us what you're drinking. We are presented tonight by Kilbeggan Irish Whiskey. I am drinking their small batch rye. It's actually the first time I've had this. It was described to me as an intro to wine, to rye, sorry. And I'm actually doing mine with a little bit of a lemon peel, kind of like a quick old fashioned there, and a little bit of chocolate bitters. But I was drinking them straight earlier, and I will be again, probably here in a moment. As you can see, I got my little setup here, so I don't have to walk away from my tour. We will have a restroom break at some point, and so I can swap batteries, everybody visit the restroom. And we're hoping to not run too long tonight. My last tour ran about 3.5 hours. I think that was a bit excessive. So this one I'm hoping for closer to an hour plus Q&A. I will be having a Zoom meeting set up after this for anybody that wants to join. If you want to have a one-on-one or more of like the interaction with your questions, I'll have that set up for us as well. But I wanted for this part to be able to stream to all platforms. Okay, I got 22 people on here. So I'm going to give it another couple of minutes here. We'll say 7:05. We'll actually start digging in here. Everybody get your drink, get ready. Okay, so I'm going to mute for one moment here. I got water this time. Drinking it this time. Okay, so it seems like we kind of leveled out there. All right, so one more time, quick intro here for those that are not familiar with me. My name is LiamGideon. I am a tour guide here in Washington D.C. I've covered tours all over the city. I've been to the White House multiple times and have led tours surrounding the area. And we actually have a couple of I think we have a couple people watching us who've actually been in the White House as well. And they can feel free to. Excellent. Feel free to chime in if any information you guys might want to share. And this is an open interaction. I want everybody to ask questions. I have somebody monitoring questions over here, so I don't get too distracted by them, especially as I'm going through the presentation. I love to have everybody interact, everybody ask questions, make their statements, make any kind of comments. Feel free to engage. This is for everybody to engage and have fun. First off, introduction here. Who's presenting this? This is presented once again by Kilbeggan Irish Whiskey. I was informed that I am mispronouncing that because I'm an American, but I tried. I failed miserably. But I am drinking the small batch rye. I also have the single grain. This is actually was described to me as a baby rye. It's not the 51% or higher rye like we have in the States. This is a much lower rye content, but it's very smooth, very delicious. And if you are watching on YouTube or Facebook, there should be a link in the comments on how to purchase Kilbeggan. There's also links to my Venmo, CashAPP, my websites, and a place to donate on Square. So it's time for the shameless self-promotion and the ask right off the front, and I'll do it a little bit later as well. I am running this free of charge, open to everybody. We're hoping to do a series of these and pretty regularly, maybe twice a week even, for different purposes. And a few other things we have coming in the works. But this is open, free to the public. If you enjoy your tour, gratuity is much appreciated. So I have links to all of that. I'll be posting throughout the tour, and I have those in the description of both the YouTube and the Facebook Live comments. And if you do not see those, feel free to reach out, and I will pass those through, and I'll also put them in the comments as we make our way through. First of all, a little bit about Kilbeggan. They are the oldest continuously licensed distillery of its type in Ireland and the world. They were founded in 1757. They shut their doors in 1954 after surviving the War of Independence, the temperance movement, and Prohibition. The Kilbeggan townspeople voluntarily paid the annual distillery license fee throughout the decades, and on the 250th anniversary in 2007, they reopened. So what's great about this is we're talking tonight about the oldest federally occupied public building in the nation, the White House, which means we own it. They're just using it. And it's presented by the oldest whiskey distillery in Ireland. Now, we're going to get started here talking about the White House. And let me get over to this. Excellent. So we're going to have a little bit of history on the construction of the White House, and we're actually going to tour the inside of the White House. You're going to see things that you typically don't get to see as a general public. And this will include parts of the West Wing. And thanks to a friend of mine who reached out last night and provided some more information, we're going to have a little bit more of a view of the Dwight D. Eisenhower Executive Office Building, also known as the Old Executive Office Building. Something you don't typically get to see as part of the general public unless you're being brought through with somebody who works at the White House. We'll also be able to see the Rose Garden throughout the years. And a lot of our presentation will be going through the decades. So we'll see how the White House has changed in each room throughout the years. Now, to start off with some of the rough facts that everybody always wants to know. Every time I did a tour outside the White House, everybody wants to know how big is it, how many rooms, so on. So I'll just get those out of the way. Contrary to popular belief, as I've often seen tour guides state, the White House is not 55,000 square feet. The official number from the White House is actually close to 100,000 square feet. It is 6 floors in total, 132 rooms, 5 kitchens, 3 elevators, 28 fireplaces, and 35 bathrooms. So these are all the things you typically see on trivia or on tests. So again, 132 rooms, 5 kitchens, 3 elevators, 28 fireplaces, and 35 bathrooms. I kid you not, I did a bar trivia once. Everybody looked at me to answer any one of those questions, and I couldn't remember any of them when I was put on the spot, but that happens. The first elevator was installed in the White House in 1881. Electricity was first introduced in the White House in 1891 under the Harrison administration, and parts of the White House were actually wired by Thomas Alva Edison himself, who lived here in D.C. at the time. And the White House is called the White House because it's white. It actually has a lime whitewash that was done over the years, not just after the fire of 1814 to cover the burn marks, but it was actually whitewashed before that in lime. And the name just kind of stuck, and it was actually made official in 1901 by Theodore Roosevelt. But let me start. There we go. So, the White House was designed by James Hoban. James Hoban was actually born in Kilkenny, County Kilkenny in Ireland, of 2 counties over from where Kilbeggan is from. Okay, sorry, the camera's resetting there. And he was actually born in 1755, just 2 years before Kilbeggan started. Okay, yes. Okay, thank you. And so it's actually pretty possible that James Hoban, when back in Ireland, was actually drinking this whiskey. It was from just a few miles down the road from him and lived through the same time period. And the District of Columbia is set up as a federal district out of 100 square miles, a 10 by 10 square of Northern Virginia and Southern Maryland. And it's set up as a federal district, so no one state could walk away from the federal government with the federal buildings. This is why the District of Columbia was established in the way it was. This is the original design of the District of Columbia by Pierre Charles Lafayette. You can see Georgetown to the left looks a little different than the other parts of the city that are well laid out in a grid pattern. That's because Georgetown predates the District of Columbia by several decades. And that's why the buildings look a lot different there as well. Okay, and the site for the White House and the Capitol were actually selected by George Washington himself, who lived just 14 miles downriver, down the Potomac. And James Hoban's primary inspiration for the White House is this building, the Leinster House. And I am definitely mispronouncing that, but in Dublin. And he designed the original design for the White House. This is the south face and the north face. There is no front or back of the White House, as with all federal buildings in the District of Columbia. That's because it would be insulting to have anybody go through the back door when you're bringing in diplomats or the Pope, for instance. So you have a north face, south face, east face, west face. There is no front of the White House. This is the part most people refer to as the front because it's where the entrance is on Pennsylvania Avenue. And the White House was constructed with James Hoban himself overseeing the construction. And this is actually one of the payrolls. This payroll from August 1795 shows 4 enslaved sawyers working at the White House, at the president's house. And so this is a combination of hired or rented slave labor from local plantations and paid freemen working on the White House at the time. So it was a combination of labor. You can see the White House under construction here, overlooking, that would actually be, from where this is looking, Georgetown in the background. And right after the White House was completed in 1814, the British came to town and burned down the entire city, including the White House and the Capitol. And one person in particular saved a lot of elements from the fire. That would be the First Lady, our first real First Lady, Dolly Madison, who we greatly love here in D.C. because she saved the portrait of George Washington that is hanging at the White House to this day, and many other artifacts from the White House to prevent them from being burned in the fires. But she also held a party every 90 days, every day for the next 90 days at the Octagon House a couple blocks down the road, funny enough, also designed by James Hoban, until she convinced people that D.C. was pretty cool and will stay here rather than moving back to Philadelphia and giving up on this capital city. She believed in George Washington's view of a capital city that's no older than the country. And so thanks to Dolly Madison that our town still exists today. So you can see 1827 here of the White House and the city developing around it. The second oldest federally occupied public building in the nation, by the way, is in the background here. That is the Capitol. You may see that it's a lot smaller in this image, and it's also missing its dome that we see today because the Capitol as we know it today didn't really develop until the 1850s when they added the Capitol dome and had already added the wings on either side. So we have a young Washington developing here, 1857, just right before the Civil War, the White House being shown from the south face once again. This is an image everybody sees every time the White House gets blown up on television, but this is back 150 years ago, and you can see to the left there's actually a greenhouse. And going through the years here, we have people walking around the grounds of the White House in 1890. Up until 1976, you could just walk right in the gates of the White House. And through the years here. Here again, 1901, this is going to be the last time you see the White House looking like this. You see to the left, you have the greenhouse. To the right, it is just open land. Theodore Roosevelt moved in and had a lot of kids to take care of and a lot of families staying at the White House with him, and he needed more space. And so he actually had them tear down the greenhouse and add an east and west wing So looking here, this is after the construction. You can see this is more or less how the White House looks today. And added, this is the east wing to your right. And people entering the east gate. And this is the old greenhouse taken down to build the west wing to your left. There we go. So you have the west wing to your left and the east wing to your right. This picture was taken in 1925. You can see the early formations of the Oval Office, what eventually was moved to the back of the west wing many years later. A little bit better view of the west wing. And but the White House has gone through construction multiple times and major renovations. In fact, one of the biggest ones was during the Truman Administration. The White House, even though it had just been renovated under Theodore Roosevelt just a few years prior, about 30 years prior, it was falling apart already. So they completely gutted out the interior and rebuilt. And so all that was left was a facade. They reconstructed in 1948 to 1952. This is also when President Truman moved over to the Blair House across the street, the presidential guest house, in order to do the renovation. And it's also where President Truman was shot at outside the Blair House as an assassination. Which brings us to the White House we know today. And yeah, you can see the spotters on top of the roof on this one. This is a view of the north face once again. This is on Pennsylvania Avenue. And on the opposite side, we have the south face, which faces the south lawn. If you ever visit Washington, D.C., unless you're actually doing a tour inside the White House, you really can't get into the south lawn or into the north lawn. You can't get very close to the White House, except for the Easter egg roll, and I think it was twice a year, and a couple of you on here can correct me on that if I'm wrong. They open up the south lawn and the Rose Garden for visitors to come in on special events. That's which means if you're visiting Washington, D.C., if you want to see the White House as close as possible, you typically go from the north face, which is a little different right now as they're extending the fencing right now and redoing the fences on the north side. Many people don't realize this, but the White House is actually inside a park. It's actually on federal property or national park property. It's known as the President's Park. The President's Park includes several elements, which here you see Lafayette Square in front. This is where people have been arriving to demonstrate their First Amendment right of protest for centuries. At one point, it was used as a racetrack, staging ground for the military, horse stables, and even a cemetery. Many of the bodies that have been removed from Lafayette Square are actually in our International Cemetery today. And you see to the right, that is the old Executive Office building. To the left is actually U.S. Department of Treasury. And behind it is the Washington Monument, but between the Washington Monument and the White House is the South Lawn, followed up by the Ellipse. And this is a view looking off the roof of the White House across the Lafayette Square. So this all encompasses the President's Park. And once again, looking at Lafayette Square from the other direction, you can see the White House in the background, West Wing to your right. That is the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs to your far left in the red building. And Lafayette Square is actually surrounded by some colonial-era housing. As you can see down both sides, these all belong to the U.S. Department of Interior today. Many of them are park property. But long ago, you had people living here, including the Secretary of War, Secretary of the Navy, and Dolly Madison moved right around the corner from the White House in 1837 to 1849 because she loved D.C. so much that after her husband died, she came to live a block from the White House, essentially. And Admiral Decatur lived right around the corner as well. There are also several statues in the President's Park. Particularly, there are 5 in Lafayette Square, starting in the center with Andrew Jackson, the father of the Democratic Party. As we know it today, Andrew Jackson's statue here is actually the first equestrian statue built in America, period. It's also the first equestrian statue in the world constructed with a horse reared up on its hind legs that's unsupported by any other means. So it doesn't lean back to the tail or doesn't have a pole holding up the weight, unlike all older statues of its kind. And it's also, lost my camera for a second there, add insult to injury, it was constructed out of bronze we stole from the British when we melted down their cannons. The other 4 statues on Lafayette Square are 4 foreign dignitaries who helped us during this Revolutionary War. This is Ferdinand Baron von Steuven, who is actually not a baron, but he claimed he was, who trained our military at Valley Forge. In fact, he's the guy who put us in rank and file and actually made the military work. And then we have Rochambeau. He's, well, known for a lot of games being named after him, but Rochambeau was a famed general from France who came over to help in the Revolution. We have Kosciuszko, who was made Brigadier General by George Washington himself. And, of course, Marquis Goutte Marie de Lafayette himself, who the square is named after. Marquis de Lafayette, perhaps the most famous Frenchman to ever step foot in American soil. At age 19, he defied his king's orders and came to the United States of America, or back then it was the colonies, to fight in the Revolutionary War. In fact, if the king found out that he was going to disobey his orders and come and fight for our country, our government, our people, he would have been beheaded. So he snuck out in the middle of the night, commissioned his own ship. This is a statue of Marquis de Lafayette. Marquis de Lafayette also was a dignitary to the United States of America. He dined personally with 7 presidents in a row, the first 7 presidents in a row. And during Bastille Day, there's typically people lay flowers at Lafayette's statue here. This is St. John's Church. Some of you may recognize this from the news more recently. This is called the President's Church, as almost every president has attended St. John's Church in its existence, in its history. And on the south side of the White House, you have the U.S. Department of Commerce to your right, part of the Federal Triangle. But you see the White House center left, and that is the ellipse between the front of the image and the White House. The ellipse is just south of the White House, just north of the Washington Monument. It has been used for various things over the years, including a baseball park at one point. This is baseball on the ellipse in 1942. And previously, it's where the president would land in Marine One, the presidential helicopter. This is John F. Kennedy arriving at the ellipse. He is the last president to ever arrive on the ellipse by helicopter. After his assassination, they moved it to the South Lawn, actually just outside the Rose Garden. And the ellipse is also home of the National Christmas Tree, which is not a new tree cut down every year, unlike how many believe. It's actually a planted Christmas tree. The one that we have is a Colorado spruce from Virginia, and we decorate it each year surrounded by trees from each U.S. state, or decorated by each U.S. state. And next up, we're going through the rooms of the residence. And so when we refer to the White House, they typically refer to the residence as the center portion of the White House, basically the square part. There's a whole lot more underground and in each wing, and offices across the street as well, in 2 directions. Now, this is the entrance hall and the grand staircase. The grand staircase goes from the state floor to the 2nd floor and is primarily used for ceremonial occasions. And you would think that this would be the first thing you see if you visit the White House, but it typically isn't, because if you're coming through as a visitor for the East Wing tour, or the residence tour, this is what you see, which is, this is the ground level, and this is actually connects both sides of the White House east to west. There's typically actually a wall in the middle of this to prevent people from walking into areas they're not supposed to go through without going through Secret Service. And we're going to go through floor by floor of some of the main areas of the White House. This is the ground floor of the White House. If you're ever doing a tour of the White House, the East Wing or the residence, this is where you typically enter, is on the ground floor. And what's not shown in this floor plan, but I did remember, so I hunted it down, they actually have their own private theater. And so look in both directions, and that is President George W. Bush's pups on screen there for this image. And we also have the library. The library was the library currently contains about 2,700 works of American life and thought in the modern era. This is the President's Library. They do have their own library. They don't typically use the Library of Congress. And the Vernell Room, also known as the Silver Room. This room takes its name from a large collection of gilded silver received by the White House in 1958 by Margaret Thomas Biddle. And Until the end of the 19th century, the rooms of the White House were the domain of the servants. Going into the 19th and 20th century, they had moved things around. They actually used most of the White House for office space. In 1902, this room became a coat and dressing room for female guests under Theodore Roosevelt. This is the China Room, and this is where they store the china that's used for the White House. It's also occasionally used for special events and special dinners. And the White House has several kitchens. I mentioned this is their primary kitchen. And going through the years, this one's from over 100 years ago, as we make our way through the 1940s and up until today. And they do have special guest chefs arrive at the White House kitchen. And I've actually had friends who worked in the White House, so they typically order from the kitchen on the days where the special guest chefs arrive. This is Chef Henry Holler visiting in 2008 under President George Bush. Did you have questions? Or no? Okay. Moving up one floor, we're going up to the main floor. As you see from the north side, this is the first floor. So starting off with the East Room, 1903. This is where a lot of the grand functions and grand balls happen, essentially. Major events include Gerald Ford was sworn in as president here in 1974. And Garfield was the only one who did not lie in state in the East Room. It was under renovation in 1881. And there's also, way through here, 1905, a little bit better picture here is photography improved more than the room did. And as it appears today, and you have Sunny down to the bottom right there. And these gold curtains you see to the right, that's actually where President Barack Obama stood when he announced that they had captured and killed Osama bin Laden. So that you may recognize those curtains. They had them open so you could view the hallway, the cross hall in the background. This is the family dining room. If you're ever looking at the White House, this is actually the front right lower windows of the White House from the north side, from Pennsylvania Avenue or Lafayette Square. But they also have a state dining room right next door. The state dining room is where they have a lot of special functions when they have special dinners. Sometimes they're in the state dining room, sometimes they're in the East Room, sometimes they're actually in the Rose Garden, which you'll see a little bit later on. But most of the rooms of the ground floor, or the floor one of the White House, are essentially glorified living rooms. They're diplomat rooms. This is where they meet with people. And everybody's heard some of these names. Okay. And this is the Red Room, 1902. This is the Red Room during the Clinton era. And Red Room during the Obama era, which hasn't changed a lot. A lot of the furniture is original. They just keep resurfacing it. They actually have a carpentry department in the White House that works on some of these things as well. And so imagine a lot of times when people are expecting a tour of the White House and they get canceled, it's because dignitaries are visiting and they actually use these rooms to meet with people. Moving on to the Green Room, 1881 and 1903. And during the Bush era, this is how it looks today as well. Names are pretty self-evident here. And the most famous of all the diplomatic rooms in the White House, we have the Blue Room. This is an absolutely gorgeous room, and I mentioned the National Christmas Tree earlier. We also have the White House Christmas Tree, which is one that's donated each year from a different state, and it's actually placed in this room. This one also overlooks the South Lawn of the White House and looks all the way through the Washington Monument to Thomas Jefferson Memorial from that back window. And through years of renovation, this is more or less how it appears today. So this is during the Bush era and from the Obama era. Moving up a floor, you typically don't get to see much of these floors. This is the going into the residences, although these were used for offices up until Theodore Roosevelt expanded the White House. But we have a few photos here. There is a queen bedroom, and it's actually named that because queens have stayed here, and many of them. And the Lincoln bedroom has been restored or rebuilt during the multiple renovations, including the Kennedy renovation. Yeah.
So they look very similar, each of the rooms,
Mm-hmm.
like across time. Is it because they're not allowed to change them?
Yes, that's a great question. So the question is, because a lot of these rooms look very similar across time, one of the very common questions about the White House is how much can the president and the first family do to the White House when they move in? It's actually not a lot. For the most part, they're only allowed to renovate the Oval Office, which every president does for the most part, and parts of their residence in the upper level, but very limited decor on that. And so, for instance, after Jacqueline Kennedy led the renovation of the White House, one of the more recent major renovations, they actually put together a White House Historical Society, which I actually will post a link for. And here's where some of this information is coming from. And all renovations or changes to the White House must be approved by the Historical Society to preserve the White House. And when Jackie Kennedy oversaw the renovation, she insisted it be renovated to the way as close as possible to the original appearance. So it's a good question. And so, like the Lincoln Room, for instance, the White House has been completely demolished multiple times since Lincoln stayed in this room. And so this was actually just completely reconstructed and looked the way it did when Lincoln lived here. I go up one more floor. This is actually more residence, and you never get to see these areas unless you are a president or part of the presidential family. But I do have one image here. This is a solarium. This is, you see at the bottom of the blueprint here. If you ever look at the White House in pictures, particularly aerials, you'll see what looks like a little sunroom in the back, a little octagon-looking window. That is what this is, which is actually a beautiful room. Which brings us to the West Wing. Now, the West Wing is actually connected to the White House through what is called the 45-second commute, the West Colonnade. And it's called that because it takes 45 seconds to get from the residence side to the Oval Office. Very fast commute. But the Oval Office, I'm going to go through the Oval Office over the years in a separate part of this. But this is the Oval Office fairly recently. This is the beginning of the Obama administration on this image. And the Oval Office is one of those that every president decorates or renovates. One of the saddest stories on that, though, was when Jackie Kennedy had it completely renovated, and then John F. Kennedy was assassinated the weekend that they were out of town for the renovation, so they actually took down the renovation so it would not be there waiting for them when they came back. So you're going to see a lot of change in the Oval Office over the years. This is the center of power for the White House. This is the president's actual working office. And right next door to him is the vice president's working office. There's a ceremony office next door. But the original office for the president when the West Wing was first constructed by Theodore Roosevelt is now known as the Roosevelt Room, appropriately enough. Looking here, the Oval Office is right across the hall from the Roosevelt Room today. So this is used as a meeting room, and you see Theodore Roosevelt in the picture in the background honoring him in his former office. And the door to the right has a reverse peephole. And I joked about it when that the president can look in and see who's there to decide whether or not he wants to go into the room. But you don't get to look out from the room. You get to look into the room from that little hole in the door in the back right. And this is the cabinet room. Let me get off there. So this is where the president meets with members of his staff. And the cabinet's chairs are actually arranged by date of when their office was established. The Situation Room is a little bit different. This is where, when things get real, they all meet up together here. And they have a direct link to people like the CIA and the FBI and Special Forces. And occasionally used for videotaping. And this is the West Wing lobby. If you're visiting the West Wing for official business, this is actually where you would first enter. Just outside the West Wing lobby, there will actually be a Marine standing guard at all times. And they actually have an earpiece that's orchestrated, or somebody in the lobby who buzzes the Marine whenever somebody's coming in or out. So that way he or she opens the door without anybody knowing that having to knock or ever having to touch anything. It's actually very well orchestrated, very impressive. And those Marines standing guard, you can find video of hurricanes going on and Marines still standing guard. And there's also a mess hall. This is the Navy mess hall, and there's another officers hall right across the hall from this that is by reservation only and only for officers. But this is open for those that work at the White House to come in and grab a meal. But this is one that everybody has seen on TV at some point. This is the press briefing room named for James Brady, who was the Secretary of the Press for Ronald Reagan, who was actually shot when Ronald Reagan was shot at the Washington Hilton Hotel here in Washington, D.C. Now, this is how it looks today, and this is how we're familiar with seeing it. And by the way, there's 200 people fits in this little room. But this is what the room originally was. It was actually established as a swimming pool for Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who felt that swimming made it easier for him to use his legs and give him exercise because he was paralyzed after his bout with polio. And this is actually many years later, a little bit different decor. This is from the Senator's Wife's Day Out at the White House, where they all got to come enjoy the pool in their full wool outfits. And I was got a few requests yesterday for the Rose Garden. This is the original Kennedy Rose Garden from the Kennedy era. As an archive photo from the White House Historical Association. Looking through the years, this is how the Rose Garden looked during the Reagan era. The Rose Garden is used for various things, occasional events and dinners. It's also where occasionally the president will address the public. As you'll see, every once in a while they're reporting from the Rose Garden. Here's how the Rose Garden appeared during the Obama era. And again, this image is circa around 2016. And another angle here. And it's also where every president pardons a turkey every year for Thanksgiving. So this is actually done at the Rose Garden. This is 2019 with President Trump. And this is a special state dinner for Chancellor Angela Merkel from Germany. Also, just outside the Rose Garden, they added the First Lady's Garden under Michelle Obama. This is actually where they get the vegetables for their kitchen, for the White House. And they produce, I believe it's 10,000 pounds of produce a year now. And whatever they don't use, they donate to local charities in the Washington, D.C. area. With that said, a quick pause here and check my battery. Take a look at that and see what it looks like. I'll look at the top. Be right back, guys. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so before we move on here, everybody hear me again? We're good? It is time for drinks. A little bit. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so anybody have some questions or comments? Now's a good time to drop those in there. I'm going to give it just a minute here. Let me catch up here. Hello from Texas. Sorry, on and off is still at work. All right, anybody have any questions or comments? Drop those in right now. I'll be taking a look. Okay, so moving on. So the Oval Office, as I mentioned, it was not the first office for the president. The president's office was typically upstairs or in other rooms. They'd actually just use some of the bedrooms. And President Roosevelt, that would be Theodore Roosevelt, built the West Wing and added his office. And they actually added an Oval Office in the center of the West Wing, more or less of how it is today. This is the original Oval Office, but it's not the same room that you know today. It's not even in the same location. It wasn't until Franklin Delano Roosevelt added the Oval Office we know today in the center of the West Wing, overlooking the Rose Garden, and make our way through here. So we have, once again, Roosevelt, and then President Truman, still with Roosevelt's decor. Sometimes they change the decor immediately. Sometimes they take their time. Sometimes they do not change it at all. This is Truman once again with his own decor. And then moving on to Dwight D. Eisenhower with his own decor, and a very famous photo of John F. Kennedy here from Life magazine. As I mentioned, he did renovate the Oval Office in 1963, but unfortunately was assassinated the weekend they were doing the renovation. And this is Lyndon B. Johnson, still with the Kennedy decor, actually, for the most part. He's actually, and
The White House military office is in the East Wing. Was it the original occupant in that part of the house?
the White House military office is in the East Wing. Was it the original occupant of that part of the house? Actually. And who is that from?
Art.
Oh, interesting. No, I believe the original occupant of the East Wing was the servants originally. And let me take a look here. Actually, I think I had a note about that. I guess not. Yeah, so the original occupants of the East Wing was, for the most part, for the servants' quarters. There's a ground floor is pretty much where they worked and operated. And okay. Moving on, Richard Nixon, still on Lyndon Johnson's actual decor, but this is actually Nixon talking to the astronauts in 1969, the Gemini project. And here we have Nixon actually changed the decor for his own, but this shows going from one president to the next with the same decor. This is Nixon in 1973 and Ford in 1974 in the same office, in the same decor, same design. And then this is Carter. This is actually a recreation at his presidential library, how it appeared in 1977 in the Carter administration. And moving on to Ronald Reagan, a little bit more simplistic, clear white decor. But this rug matches the seal on the ceiling, by the way, which you can see in several of these photos. Moving on to Bush Sr., which not a big change, mostly in the curtains. The paintings are the same. And the wall colors are all the same. Mostly just change the curtains. Moving on to Clinton. Clinton, they made some changes. The rug was actually changed out for a blue rug. Still matching the seal that's actually on the ceiling. They changed out the couches. And actually painted the walls and changed out the curtains for a gold with a blue stripe. And moving on, George W. Bush. Here he is in 2001 when he first took over the Oval Office, and also 2001 in an actual cabinet meeting. This is an aerial view of the Oval Office. It's not as big as it looks on TV. You can also tell from here that everything in the office is actually curved. The doors are actually curved. If you look to your far left here, on the bottom left of the corner right above 2001, you'll actually see there's a doorknob there built into the paneling, so the doors actually hide away. And this is 2016 under President Barack Obama, and you can see they changed out the rug once again, and this time they added wallpaper, and that is actually, from last I saw it, how it appears today as far as the wallpaper. But President Trump has changed out the curtains and a little bit more of the decor. But the Resolute desk that they all use, that is from the USS Resolute. That is a ship that hit an iceberg and it's stuck in the ice. I have a cat helping me down here, but did not sink. So they actually made 2 desks out of it. That is actually a true story, and this is the one in the United States. The other one is at the Queen's office. But right next door, we have the old Executive Office Building, also known as the Dwight D. Eisenhower Executive Office Building, often referred to as the ugliest building in America. or many call it the wedding cake building. I often refer to it as the haunted mansion. This picture you can actually see on the right there. They're building renovating a building. That's actually where they were establishing the new credit bureau. And the old executive office building was formerly known as the Department of War, State, and Navy building because it's where the Department of War, State, and Navy were. So pretty self-explanatory. It was built in the late 1800s, 1877 to 1888, I believe on that, and designed by a guy named Mullet, or Moulet, M-U-L-L-E-T. When I said it was described as the ugliest building in America, that was by Mark Twain, who lived in D.C. for a little bit and wrote nothing flattering about my city. And it is 90% concrete, wrought iron, or stone. There is almost no wood in the building, very little wood inside the building to make it fireproof, because the buildings that used to be there got burnt down by the British. The Department of State, Navy, and War all gradually moved out, some down the road, some over by the Lincoln Memorial for a while during World War II, and eventually moved into the Pentagon for the most part, Department of State, a few blocks down the road. But it is now White House offices, essentially an extension of the West Wing. And it is a beautiful building, actually, in my opinion. Going onto the inside, you have the West Rotunda and the East Rotunda. These are not the original glass. They took out the original glass during World War II and filled these with concrete to make it a bomb-proof bunker. And the glass was not stored at the Smithsonian. It was actually lost. And so they recreated it based on images or memories people had who had visited the old executive office building. And to give you an idea of how far they go to renovate today and to keep things on point and original in appearance, when they had to replace some of the tiles in the floor of the old executive office building, they could not match the original stone because the quarry had closed. So they tracked down the people who owned the quarry in New York and had them reopen it and quarry up enough stone to replace every brick twice for the old executive office building, and then closed it again. One of the more beautiful offices in the building is the Secretary of War office, which is actually comprised of 10 rooms. It was actually the Secretary of War suite, and it's where the Secretary of War was, which you may not be familiar with that title today because it's now known as the Secretary of Defense. We changed the name from Secretary of War to Secretary of Defense after World War II when we're occupying half the world because it sounded more positive. Because after World War II, you didn't want to introduce yourself as somebody from the War Department in Asia or Europe. And it's also home of the Vice President's ceremonial office on the opposite side of the building. This room actually overlooks the West Wing of the White House. And ceremonial office is typically used for special ceremonies, things that are going to end up on international news. It is a beautiful room, beautiful office, but the Vice President is typically working out of his working office in the West Wing, which is right next door to the President, because they work very closely together typically. This is the Law and War Library. It is actually was originally a law library. It is now a library for the White House. I had a note on that. Sorry, but it's for the executive offices. And these are actually some of the original rooms from the building. These are meeting rooms, the diplomatic reception room, and the Cordell Hall room, which is also just basically a meeting room. And the Indian Treaty Room, named the Indian Treaty Room because for some reason there was never any Indians nor treaties in this room. Nobody knows why they call it the Indian Treaty Room. It's most commonly used, from what I've heard, for people who work in the old executive office building to practice guitar because it has good acoustics. And at $35 a square foot, it is the most expensive room in the entire White House complex. And yes, there is a bowling alley inside the White House, Harry S. Truman Bowling Alley. And if you ever get a tour of the White House, somebody takes you to the West Wing, the old executive office building, you actually get an opportunity to bowl down there sometimes. With that said, let me come back here. All right, coming back to full screen. You can see, here's my helper kitty right here. He was helping me out a little bit earlier. This is actually Marquita Lafayette. That's his name. Thank you very much for joining me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to go through questions here. Questions or comments, feel free to drop them in here. I do have more notes. I know I had to try not to stare at those too much, but I do have notes for some of the things that I don't know. I do have references for. But thank you for helping me work through this, and we're going to keep going, keep making it better. But I'm looking forward to hearing some comments and some questions. You're going to help there, Marquis?
Are you going to do this again?
Okay, so because I had requests yesterday when we did the trial run to do one on the war memorials and the Lincoln Memorial. I believe I'm going to go ahead and set one up for next Thursday for the war memorials of the National Mall and Washington, D.C. No worries. We'll have some of this recorded as well. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what my cat decided to drink out of.
They asked what you're drinking.
Charlie, oh yeah, so you relate to the game because you had a surprise. I am drinking Kilbeggan. This is actually the Kilbeggan small batch rye. This is what was described to me as a baby rye because it is a lighter rye than what we typically get in the States. This is all Irish whiskey from Kilbeggan. And I'm going to slide these out of the way here so I can actually reach things. Are there any Confederate statues in the White House? From my knowledge, no. But I haven't been in the White House. It was the last time we were in the White House in a couple of years. But there are the most famous statues that are inside the White House that I can recall. There's actually a bust of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is typically in the Oval Office of the West Wing. There's a statue of a Rough Rider. There's the Buffalo Bill looking statues, and then portraits of various presidents throughout history. Most famously is the Kennedy portrait that was done after his assassination. So it actually has him with a solemn face looking down in a way. But there are some very interesting statues surrounding the White House. There's a lot of spite in history, and here in DC. Get out of my whiskey water. That's my whiskey water. I am so glad that he is here to loosen things up. Because I'm working on this, guys. So thank you for joining me here. There are some of the other statues that we did not discuss today in the President's Park by the U.S. Department of Treasury. There's a couple in particular. On the north and south side of the Department of Treasury, we have two former Secretaries of Treasury. On the south side, the infamous Alexander Hamilton, which everybody forgot about until a couple of years ago for some reason. And our first Secretary of Treasury, the guy who established our credit system. And on the north side of the U.S. Department of Treasury, there is actually a statue of Albert Gallatin, who balanced the budget and paid off all of our debts under Andrew Jackson, because Jackson refused to owe anybody anything as a country.
So a couple of questions. Are there any memorable parties thrown at the White House? The pool party.
The pool? Yeah, well, yeah, we had this. I can go back to that, actually. So there was actually a pool party at the senator's wives showed up for a pool party at the White House, which, let me go back here. I'll get it pulled up here. While I'm pulling that up, the other statue I was going to mention is actually the exact opposite of who you were asking about. It is William Tecumseh Sherman. And it's interesting because he's facing the building instead of the park, because Sherman was the one who burned all of the South during the Civil War, and he insisted that any statue ever erected of him have his horse's rear end facing south. Tail up. With that said, so it's a unique spite there. So this is a pool party with these senators' wives. Some of the other interesting parties happen in the White House. They actually host a lot of parties at the White House. One of the more interesting ones for me, because it also ties into with my Arlington Cemetery tour and what I researched there, was for the former Women's Air Force Service pilots. We had 1,073 female pilots in World War II who handled our transport for the military domestically and trained a lot of the men who went overseas. And they lost all their jobs, benefits, credentials when the war was over. And Elaine Harmon was one of these, and her daughter was fighting and fought all the way up to the White House to get her the right to be interred at Arlington National Cemetery. And after this came to the president's attention, the president actually wrote a law, not wrote a law, but supported a law and signed a bill that allowed them to be buried at Arlington Cemetery. And he brought the 17 surviving women Air Force Service pilots into the White House and had a personal dinner with them and issued 1,073 Congressional Gold Medals at that time. One of my other favorite parties at the White House, they actually have, in history, have had a lot of Halloween parties where they actually hand out candy for trick-or-treaters. And one of the more amusing ones for me was when I saw President Barack Obama tell the kids, "Today you don't have to listen to my wife. You can have the candy," going against the healthy foods.
So Sean asked, how does it feel to wear a t-shirt? And I'll add, are your arms hurt?
My arms are hurting, and like I don't have like the chest, like the chest piece, like the 3-piece holding me in. It's weird.
Cindy asked, in the event of a threat, what types of steps are taken to secure the area, White House, and president?
Okay, so there's a lot, and there's actually I believe there is somebody on here watching who knows this firsthand. So first of all, the White House is required by law to always have representation from all branches of the military: Army, Air Force, Marine Corps, Navy. Did I leave anybody out? Marine Corps, Army, Navy, Air Force. I hate to leave somebody out because somebody would get really upset. What's that? Well, there's no C there. There is a division inside the White House that's watching for security, and it includes the Army and the Marine Corps there. In the case of a threat, so what typically happens, and this happens more than you would realize, first of all, they lock down the entire area surrounding the White House. Secret Service will push people back. So Tony, so Coast Guard is there, Gonzo? So Coast Guard is there. I wasn't certain about that one because they're not always considered military. But no, yeah, I know. This is true. And so they will actually push back people back on the other side of Pennsylvania Avenue when Pennsylvania Avenue is open, sometimes all the way back to H Street, which is on the other side of Lafayette Square. They'll close down the south side of the White House and set up a perimeter. You also have counter snipers on top of the White House, and you have spotters. They're called counter snipers for a reason because they're not looking for you and me on the street. They're looking for other snipers on top of the buildings surrounding. Okay, so yes, we got confirmation that the Coast Guard is there. Anthony knows he actually worked under the Army in the White House, in the military offices, in the East Wing that he was referring to earlier. So they're always reviewing the cameras out there. There's cameras everywhere. And if they absolutely have to, they will escort the president out. I have heard stories that there are bunkers underneath. As it was told to me, the room that we were told that doesn't exist does exist. But there's also a helicopter evacuation plan, and whenever the helicopters are taking off from the south lawn of the White House, you actually have 3 helicopters, 2 cycle around the city until the president's loaded up. Then they all 3 come up together, and then through 3-card Monty, so you never know which one he's in, which I believe are the White Hawks today, but they're always identical. And then beyond that, it's just layers and layers of protection. There are several different layers of Secret Service. You have the Uniform Division, which is formerly known as the White House Police Department. Those are the ones you always see on the streets and the ones you see in the news a lot that are guarding the White House from the outside. They are the face of the White House. They are the front line of the White House. And they're usually like really, really good at what they do and really respectful of people. I know a lot of them. They're really cool. You also have the undercovers who are roaming around that look like me or you. I joked about this once on my tour and turned around. There was a guy laughing because he said and pointed out, I'm actually one of those. And you also have the black suits, which are the ones that surround the president, and they dress similar to whatever the president is wearing. So the president never looks out of place, either overdressed or underdressed, which they always have to stay with the president. And their job's really intense. And you remember under the Clinton era, they actually had to jog with Clinton around the White House while carrying all their arms and body armor. I had a couple of questions. Okay, so are there actually tunnels used in the White House? Okay, so I have heard various stories from various people on these, from some that lived in the White House, worked in the White House, some that have not. I haven't talked to anybody who lived in the White House, to be clear. There's actually... You actually have the ones that dress homeless as far as the Secret Service. Yeah? Cool. Well, that confirms that. The only tunnel that I've heard confirmed officially was apparently there's one that goes from the White House to the FBI headquarters to the Capitol building. And this was actually stated by Department of Homeland Security on the series, Cities of the Underworld. There's not a tunnel connecting the West Wing to the old Executive Office building. You actually have to take the parking lot back and forth across to those two. But there are evacuation tunnels at the White House, as far as I know. And again, there's people here who actually know better than I do. But officially, there are evacuation tunnels. And every once in a while, you see a sinkhole happen over on 16th Street in front of the White House. And it gets fixed pretty quickly, which makes you kind of wonder what those were. Okay, I got Brooklyn wants to know how many bedrooms and bath. Oh, I'm sorry, that's on my first page there. But it is it's one that says West Wing. It's 135 rooms, 135 rooms, 35 bathrooms, I believe it was. And I'm sorry, guys, it has been a while since I've done White House tours, so I had been a little bit rusty, so I had made notes of a lot of things, so please forgive me for that. One of my favorite stories of the White House is I was standing outside of it with somebody here who worked there, and he was checking in a Secret Service so we could watch the president come in, and they turned. Secret Service looked out and saw me in my hat and my cane and said, "You brought the tour guide with you?" Because they had been so used to hearing me out there every single day screaming about the ugliest building in America. Give me 1 second, guys. Give me 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. We are back. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I am back. Give me 1 second here. Yes, Charlie, that's what I was talking about, the old executive office building. Okay, so what else we have here? Okay, so Michael's asking about the whiskey. So once again, this is Kilbeggan Irish whiskey. This is the oldest distillery, licensed distillery of its kind in Ireland and in the world. It's actually from just a couple of counties over from where James Hoban, who designed the White House, is from. Established in 1757. And I am drinking this right here, the small batch rye. This is, I believe, is a 30% rye. So it's not like the American rye that's 50% or more. And it's really smooth. This is more or less straight at this point with a rock, but I did a little lemon wedge and a little Aztec chocolate bitters in mine a little bit earlier. And you see I have my setup from there. 2 gingers here of all my ice and lemons. And okay, so 35 bathrooms, 14 bedrooms. It is 135 rooms in total. Okay, any other questions? How does it feel to wear a t-shirt? It's kind of hilarious, isn't it? It's the second t-shirt I've worn today, too, actually. My cat is precious. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so aside from questions here about the White House, we're going to be doing these pretty frequently. I'm looking at possibly doing once a week every Thursday. And I definitely going to do one next week. I'm gonna have a special guest star, my daughter Biana, whose birthday is today. She will be here for the next one. But so next week we're going to do one on the war memorials of Washington D.C. That's going to cover the Lincoln Memorial. Sorry, not the Lincoln Memorial. The Vietnam Memorial, the Korean Memorial, the World War II Memorial, the Disabled Veterans Memorial, and the upcoming plans for other memorials. And the was also known as the World War I Memorial to a lot of people, but it's actually the District of Columbia War Memorial. So next showing is going to be next Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, same place. I will be sending out the Eventbrite for you to register, and we'll be doing this through YouTube and Facebook Live. It may be going through Kilbeggan's channel instead of mine. We'll see how things work out with how things play out, but I will update everybody. So with that said, though, drop some comments in here. Show some love. I want to hear if you have any other questions, and if you are, if there's anything that you would like to see. I will also say I'm going to drop some things into the chat here, and hopefully those show up. I'm going to get out of that. First of all, if you would like to have a one-on-one or join like a Zoom meeting after party, let me know in the chat, and I will drop a link to that, and we'll set up a meeting. Happy to do such. And I mentioned at the beginning of this, I am doing this. I am not charging for this. This is a free tour. I am not charging anybody on this. And so if you enjoyed your tour, gratuity is greatly appreciated. I have CashAPP. I'm dropping these links in here, and Venmo, as well as a Square Donate section if you don't have CashAPP or Venmo. If you're on my Facebook live under my page, LiamGideon, I'll get those posted there in a second. Right now, this is only posted to the other links. Also, other links that are important to have. White House Historical Society is where I got a lot of these photos and some of this information from. So if you'd like to learn more about the White House or visit the White House Historical Society, okay, Gonzo, I got you. And here's a link to that. Also, how to locate Kilbeggan. So I believe that chat works on everything except for my Facebook. So let me pull that up. And thanks everybody for your patience. Thanks for joining me. I know it's not perfect. I'm working through it. This is a new transition for me, and this is why I wanted to do this. And I set it up at last minute. Meant to be initially, it was just like a small group of friends and family may show up. I think everybody that participated everybody that helped out. Thank you, Sean, for all your support, and Simon for all your support. Thank you, Gonzo, for everything that you sent over to me, and all half the things that I know about the White House, I know because of you in some way or another. So thank you for that.
He said they'd like to hear about the Tomb of the Unknown, and Charlia asked, what's on deck for next week?
Next week, war memorials. War memorials. World War II, Korean, and Vietnam war memorials. So let me pull up. Okay, so if you are watching on YouTube, did you just get those links I posted? Please comment, let me know. You can check.
YouTube?
Yeah.
I can add 'em. I'll take care of it.
Okay. Do you see the ones? Did you get? Okay, so I'll send these to you then. Oh, those in the comments. Okay, so I'm going to post these here. There we go. So if you're watching on my channel, on my Facebook Live, under my account, LiamGideon, I just posted all of the links, including my Venmo, my CashAPP, Square, and White House Historical Society, and how to locate Kilbeggan. There we go, that worked. Okay, before I move on, Gonzo, what are you watching on? You're on Facebook. Okay, so I'll send this link on Facebook as well. All right, before we hop over to the Zoom, for those that are joining for the after meeting in Zoom, if you have any other questions or comments or requests for upcoming tours, let me know. Thanks for joining me, and thanks for bearing with me here. This is a learning process, I understand, and that's what I'm here for. So I'll give it a couple of minutes here. And cheers. Thanks, Art. Thanks for joining me. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So with that said, I want to break down here. Thank you very much for joining me once again. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to me. If you are not connected with me on Facebook or YouTube, then feel free to email me. That's info@guidedtoursdc.com. That's info@guidedtoursdc.com. Happy to hear from you. Happy to answer questions. I will be doing these regularly. I know that there have been requests to do tours that are more child-friendly. Or minor-friendly, we'll say. So I will be doing working on some of those as well. So look for that in the pipeline. With that said, though, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And if you want to hop onto the Zoom, I posted that on my Facebook. If you want to message me directly for it, if you don't see that, feel free to reach out and I'll pop over for those that want to join. Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you very much. Bye.